Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Agile Serbia podcast. Today's topic will be on the proxy product owners. Scrum has been around for almost 3 decades, and it seems that in the first 15 to 20 years of Scrum, there was a lot of focus on a Scrum Master role. Probably because we needed Scrum Masters to educate us on Scrum and be true ambassadors to others. But we cannot underestimate the role of product owner. It is a very important role. It is not just someone who schedules requirements or someone good at business analysis. He or she is the owner of a product or a product CEO, if you will it. However, it's not always the case in practice. Today, we have with us our friend and associate, Miljan Bajic, an expert in Agile and Scrum and an Agile coach, trainer, facilitator, and consultant, who is going to shed some light on product owner challenges and traps. So Miljan, how are you? Are you okay? How is it going?
Hey, Stefan, pretty good. It's still summer here in New England, so I'm still enjoying a little bit of what's left of the summer, but how are you doing?
So far, so great. It's really hot in Serbia as well, in Belgrade. It's 33 degrees today, so you can imagine.
Yeah, hopefully Marco takes you on his boat and gives you guys some refreshing that you guys probably need at Puzzle Software. So
yeah, he promised he will one day, I hope. So Miljan, all of this sounds very simple. Product owner is, as the title says, the owner of a product. It couldn't be simple, right? But the practice has shown us differently. So today we are frequently facing the fact that more and more product owners don't have ownership over the product. And there is a popular name for these product owners, and they are called proxy product owners. The term is described as a middleman role between the people making decisions about the product and the people developing it. Mm-hmm. So is a proxy product owner a role, and what are the differences between the proxy product owners and the regular product owners?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, and I think this is probably one of the hottest topics, in recent probably months, years, and it's gaining more and more interest. And it's not just proxy product owners. Maybe you've heard about scribes as a product
Mm-hmm.
owner. So there's different types of product owners, and really the product ownership has to do with the level of authority somebody says. So in Scrum, when we say somebody owns a product, a product owner, product backlog, there is a lot of emphasis on product. And what happens in a lot of organizations is they want to run these projects or do things the way that they did for years prior, and not change structurally. So it's really probably the simplest thing to think about is when your IT and business becomes one and merges, and everybody under IT technically starts reporting to their business partner. That's what we're striving forward. But most companies are not there yet. So what I was thinking is maybe I can share with you some of the content from a book called Project to Product, but also some of the kind of graphics that I've used to evolve or to at least help people see in my classes and other things that I do, just like what's going on, like when we say proxy product owner or scribe, or even like one of the probably biggest misunderstanding is like what's the difference between product manager and product owner. So maybe we can explore that. I can share my screen here, and then we can just have a back and forth conversation once we get or once I set some context. So the book that I'm referring to is this one here by Mick Kirsten, Project to Product. And it's really about moving towards what we call value streams or end-to-end dedicated value streams. But maybe just to give you kind of like what the context is. So prior to Agile, we had IT and business. You had other functions within business, but the IT became bigger and bigger functions. So like when somebody wanted something on business, they would throw it over the wall They would send it to some type of project management office or portfolio program management office, and then they would allocate resources. We would have like a development department, QA department, BA department, and people would be assigned to projects. And typically people would be assigned to multiple projects at a time. When the project's done, they would go back to their department. They would be reporting to whoever is head of development, head of QA, and things like that. This type of structure still exists in some organizations. It exists mostly in government. It exists in organizations that haven't adopted Agile. But over the last, 15, 20 years, more and more companies have been moving towards this B model. So what happens is like the entire IT goes through a reorg, right? And instead of having, for instance, I had a client where they had 1,500 people in IT, like here, different departments, and they reorged into 118 Scrum and Kanban teams like here. So it was only the transformation in IT. And then you would have like a manager, IT manager, that is responsible for 2 or 3 teams, sometimes called capability managers. And in this instance, we have business and IT that are still separate. We try to align product lines and some of these things from business to IT. But what happens is that the cost centers and how we budget still stays the same. The only thing that we've changed is we've restructured the teams, and maybe at some middle management level and things like that. But this is mostly change driven by IT, and it's mostly Agile and Scrum and other frameworks within IT. Product owner is typically somebody in these instances that's, what you mentioned, Proxy, and this is somebody equivalent to like a project manager. You might have somebody like a business analyst. It's becoming less and less rare, but somebody like a business analyst, that we call them scribes, to be a product owner. And at best, in Model B, you might have somebody like a product manager or business rep be a product owner. But you wouldn't definitely see somebody that owns a product like a VP or somebody that really has a lot of budget and decision-making authority. In Model B, you won't see them be a product owner. They probably spend 110% of their time in meetings, and because we're structured and still in functions and silos, they just can't do it, right? So what happens here when we have somebody like a Proxy or business rep or scribe, we call all of these are types of product owners that are not true product owners by Scrum definition, right? You might sometimes see like a technical product owner here, which is a lot of times like if a business doesn't know what the heck they're doing with, like, for instance, CI/CD automation, you have like these technical architects or people that are prioritizing what goes into the backlog, right, from an IT perspective. So if you're in this situation, then you have to work with what's given here, right? And then the third is, which is Scrum was designed for, is, and you mentioned it earlier, you have like a product CEO or chief product owner, and you have like end-to-end teams. So think about like an insurance company that sells dental insurance, right? You would have somebody that owns dental insurance, and they would have dedicated IT and business people to that dental insurance. They would be funding dental insurance, not the cost centers. So there is a big change, and depending where you are, which type of organization you're working in, your approach as a product owner needs to adjust. Scrum sells you on C, but the thing is, most organizations are not set up as C. So this is where frustration comes. If you're in A and B, you're like, oh, well, on Scrum Guide on page this, it says the product owner owns this and that. But your organization is not designed or structured for that. So that's a little intro, and we can go back and forth. I can, zoom in, zoom out based on the questions that you have. But hopefully that gives you and gives the audience a little bit of insight as far as what's going on when we talk about these product ownership types.
Great. Well, thank you. The next question would be, why are proxy product owners found so often when it comes to what you already explained to us? Does it relate?
That's a really good question, and that's I think I wish more people ask that question, because that really points to your structure. So the reason that they found most often is because most companies are not structured by products. They're structured by capabilities. Sometimes they're structured by IT systems or whatever, but they're not structured truly what we call, end-to-end value streams that are either aligned by products or business, business customer value or customer experience. So the reason that we'll continue finding more and more is due to the organizational structure. Companies want to adopt and say they're doing agile, but they don't want to make the tough decisions of restructuring. Another way to think about it is think about A and B is upgrades to, or maybe this is, operating system A, operating system B, operating system C. What people want to do is just do upgrades. They don't want to they don't want to switch to a new operating system. And that's one of the issues, because if you are structured where your business and IT is not combined, where you have a lot of handoffs, you're going to have those proxy product owners.
Well, there is also a trend that some of the companies are actually hiring the proxy product owners or introducing it deliberately. Do you believe that this role can be useful in certain scenarios, and what would the scenarios be?
I mean, these definitions, I think there's always, it's a spectrum, right? And everything needs to be context dependent. So I would never say no or yes, in a sense, but I think, at least my experience working with clients and what I see, the issue is that they don't really, these people don't know what, exactly what needs to be done. So they might take a class, or they might search or whatever, but they've never actually redesigned the organization. They don't know what they're doing. And as a result, they might create proxy product owners, or they create these hierarchies, right? And also people might know what needs to be done, but they don't have the authority. So unless you have the C-suite and people that are driving organization, like somebody like a chief operating officer or COO that understands this stuff, everything below will be murky and confusing. And that's what I see in a lot of organizations, confusing to people. Proxy product owner, I wouldn't call it proxy product owner, but for instance, here, I talked about dental insurance. I work with one client where they have dental insurance, and under a product like dental insurance, you can have sub-products. So they sell to companies like Coca-Cola, but they also sell to people like myself, who works, as an independent contractor, and I buy my own insurance for my own family, right? So they have under dental insurance, they have two sub-products. They call it group when they're selling it to Coca-Cola. They call it individual when they're selling it to me. So you could have a chief product owner that's responsible for the dental insurance overall, and then you could have a proxy product owner, or if you want to call it proxy, but I wouldn't call those proxy. They're really product owner for individual and product owner for the group. So in this instance, we have product CEO or chief product owner, and then for each of the sub products, you could have a product owner. That could resemble or remind people of the proxy, but that's not really these people. When you say, "Hey, I own dental insurance and I own the individual," it's almost like, think about Toyota did this 50 years ago when they said we're going to organize by car models, right? So if you have Toyota Prius, somebody at Toyota owns Toyota Prius, and they're that product CEO. But you might have somebody for North American market versus European or Asian market that's specifically product owner for the Asian market, but they still have to align with the chief product owner that's responsible for overall what Toyota Prius does. So think of these Model C as you have a lot of companies within the company. So that's why a lot of times companies are not switching, or they don't know what they're doing, and we see more and more of these proxy product owners. I see that more in Europe. It's not here in the United States, but I see more in Europe where they have satellite offices and things like that they create these proxy product owners, and they do it by design, not by so.
Well, thank you for the insight. I would just relate to a few things that you already mentioned and ask you, what are the dangers of creating a proxy product owner?
I mean, you're creating think about if I gave you authority to manage something like that dental insurance, but I don't give you the authority, right? And you can't, you're just day-to-day person there to talk to people. And the dangers are that you're creating more and more silos. And probably the biggest danger is in this instance here, if you're this proxy product owner, right? You're probably working with somebody like a product manager or somebody equivalent to your boss, right? And then your boss needs to figure out how to talk to these stakeholders up here. And the issue a lot of times is these stakeholders are not on the same page. So even if you're this business rep, like product manager type or project manager or proxy, you're still dealing with stakeholders that don't align. So I recently worked with a client where they had like 5 stakeholders and none of them were on the same page, but they were asking product owners to prioritize. And then on top of that, they had technical product owners on IT pitching for and wanting more time from developers and wanting them to do more of technical stuff. And if you're the business rep or proxy, you're just stuck in the middle, right? You're like, what do I do here? I don't have authority. These people that above me are telling me and contradicting what they want to do. So the dangers are that you put people in these proxy and business rep type of product owners, or I wouldn't even call them product owners really, because they're not, they don't own, but in context that we're talking about, I guess we can. And it's tough to do their job in that situation because they're just given the title, but they're not given the authority. And unless you change how decisions are made in Scrum, you can change the labels all day long.
So what do you think if someone is a proxy product owner and you can feel their pain that they do not have the authority, what is it that they can change?
So they become the connector, right? Like if you're the proxy product owner here, what you need to do is work closer with your product manager or stakeholders. Like for instance, with stakeholders, help them come up with how they're going to make decisions. Make it clear. A lot of times what I would do is do like a RACI matrix. And RACI matrix is just to clarify who's accountable, responsible, who needs to be kept in a loop, and so on, right? So clarify with them who's accountable, responsible for what, and how do you make decisions, right? If you guys are asking me to be the product owner, but I can't make decisions, let's talk about how do we make decisions, right? So that's one thing that they can do essentially is clarify the decision-making rights and who's accountable, responsible for what. The other thing that they can do is, work closer with technical side of things and help understand help business understand the, implications of technical debt, right? So they become this, I call it connector, where they're closer to the team and they're really helping both IT and stakeholders and business get on the same page so they can prioritize this backlog and they can actually deliver business value. So, they become that facilitator, connector for the team, for the IT or, technical people or technical product owners, stakeholders. And that's probably the best thing that they can do is connect the dots for other people.
Okay. Well, related to that, do you also have, the last question most likely, do you have any proposals on how to achieve a true product owner role?
I mean, it goes back to restructuring. So like, maybe, I had a client that went, from this, right? And what happened is essentially they lost one of their biggest accounts and they fired the CIO here, right? So the new CIO comes in, and this is around 2013, 2014. The new CIO comes in and says, okay, the finger has been pointed to IT, we're going to reorg IT. So they went from, this model to this model here, where, all of the teams went and, were combined into cross-functional teams, right? And then what they started seeing is that they have a lot of, they had like 1,400 applications. And they started seeing that, there was in DevOps, it's called alignment trap, where we align the teams, but the technology, it's almost making a car and making the process of making the car easier, but you still have an old engine, right? So what happens is that, the business starts realizing, and they brought a big consulting company here in the United States, and they said, well, guys, this transformation can be driven by IT. It needs to be driven by business on the left here. You need to change how you finance, you need to change your HR. And essentially what they told them, you need to move to this model C. And that's what I was saying earlier, like to make the decision to switch, not an upgrade, but to switch to completely new operating system, or in this context, organizational operating system, which would be like a governance model, or a lot of times people talk about SAFe. And, what happens is SAFe is intended to move you to C, but what people do is just apply. And what I mean by SAFe is Scale Agile Framework. People want to apply SAFe to B. And that's where it fails, because SAFe is not designed for B, it's designed for C as well. But on the surface, it looks like you can apply it here. And if I'm consultant and if I'm making millions of dollars, what am I going to say? Well, don't apply it here. Go ahead and try it, right? But really, we're talking about organizations switching to end-to-end down here. So what's going to happen over the next 5-10 years? You're going to see more and more companies moving and talking about product-based structure, end-to-end value streams. You'll see value stream management, probably replace like Scrum, and not necessarily Scrum. There's still going to be laggers, but this is the new stuff that we're talking about. And maybe it's just part of the growth, right? The first 10 years we're applying Scrum in this. The last 10 were here, and maybe the next 10 years are about C.
Okay, great. Well, I'm out of questions for you for today, but it was amazing, and thank you so much for your time. And I'm looking forward to meeting you again.
As I said, I might show up to the regional conference in October and just surprise you guys. I'm not planning to present, but if I do, it will be purely to have fun and see some friends. So, but I still haven't made a decision, so we'll see.
Well, you're always welcome, and we are looking forward to having you if you do decide.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed as much as we did, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time. Until then, enjoy. Bye-bye.